Hello there, this is Ian in the Just Flutes workshop. I've been asked by my colleagues in the sales team just to talk to you about the correct way to handle flutes when you're putting them together and taking them apart. The reason for this is quite simply that we probably get more repairs that need doing to instruments in the workshop that are caused by mishandling than almost any other reason. So it seems a good idea to talk you through it. So if I can start by showing you the correct way, or my suggestion of the correct way to put a flute together and take it apart. The most important thing is to make sure you don't grip the flute around the keywork like that when you're putting the instrument together. I would always suggest that you hold the flute up at the top where it's got the maker's name on it, so up here, and the foot joint, ideally thumb across those bottom two keys. This holds the bottom two keys shut, so you're unlikely to do any damage to the keywork or put any strain on them there, and it also means that you can hold the foot joint in a nice stable manner. When putting the instrument together, make sure that the foot joint goes on dead straight, always twist it and put it in line with the key on the body of the flute, in whichever position you normally have it. It's exactly the same when you're taking the flute apart. So thumb across the bottom two keys on the foot joint. B foot joint would be exactly the same, just the bottom two keys though. Always twist it. I'm taking the flute apart now. Hold the body of the flute up around the maker's name, foot joint, thumb across the bottom two keys, and always twist it up. It's really important not to use the flute to line up the foot joint like that. Make sure it goes on dead straight to start with. If you use the flute to line it up like that, as very often happens with beginners, you will inevitably find that very quickly the foot joint will become rocky and loose. And you can always tell this has happened because the end of the tubing on the foot joint is slightly curved over, which is why the foot joint rocks. If I can just show you on this flute what happens if you grip the keys of the flute when you're putting it together. The flute I've got in my hands at the moment is a classic example of an instrument that's been damaged by poor handling. If we look at the body first, almost always it's F that is affected. So if you get a customer phoning up and saying, "Oh, I've got a problem with the F," it's almost always because it's been held badly when it's been put together. As you can see on this flute, both the F and the E key are rather higher than the F sharp key here and the fourth finger key. And when you close the key, hope you can see that, there's a fairly large gap underneath the F key, which is why it's not working. Okay, and the same with the E key here. Okay, big gap. The reason almost always is that if the flute is gripped around the keys like that, as you see where my thumb is, got a plaster on there which is showing you exactly the point of contact. When you're putting the head joint on, inevitably that key is just going to get bent up, and it's that causes the problem. Foot joint is exactly the same. It's so easy to catch your thumb underneath the C sharp key when you're putting it together, and it just gets bent, it gets lifted, it gets strained, and it just throws the adjustment, throws the key height out. Okay, so let me just show you that once again. Hold the flute around the maker's mark, foot joint, thumb across the bottom two keys, make sure it goes on dead straight, and twist it on. There we go, that's how to do it. I do hope that's been useful. Thank you very much for watching, and very happy fluting.